Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Gabby and today I wanted to be doing a book talk-ish kind of video about Scythe and Thunderhead by Neil Shusterman. I kind of just wanted to film this because I literally just finished reading Thunderhead like 30 minutes ago and I just have so much to say about it and so many feels. So I feel like this book talk is mainly going to be talking about Thunderhead and some spoilery things, but before I get into spoilers, I just want to let you know what this series is about if you're interested, because I only read this book Scythe when I was doing this reading books outside of my comfort zone video last month, and I didn't think that I was a fan of young adult dystopians or sci-fis or fantasies, but this book has completely changed my mind kind of about it. I guess this book is the exception for me. I just really love this book and this series now. Both of these books are 5-star books for me, which is just crazy. So if you didn't know, this book is a young adult dystopian sci-fi series that takes place in this world where humans have conquered death and humans are now immortal, and humans, even if they do die now, they can easily be revived in the revival centers. There is no such thing as death anymore unless you get killed by a scythe. And a scythe is basically this person who is like an assassin, and they are necessary in this universe to prevent overpopulation. So it is a scythe's duty to glean. They call killing gleaning in this universe because it's like a more polite version, I guess, of saying killing. But their responsibility is to glean at least 5 people every week. So in this book we follow Scythe Faraday, who is training these 2 young adults, Rowan and Citra, to be the next Scythe. Yeah, this universe is just really cool because it feels very realistic in the sense that it imagines what it would be like in a universe where overpopulation becomes such a problem. And that's what I love about it, is that it just feels so real to me, and this book is just so smart and so self-aware. And the moral dilemmas that these characters find themselves in is also very fascinating, and part of the reason I think why I am enjoying this series so much. And I feel like towards the middle of this book in particular, it really starts to feel like almost like a mystery thriller, because you're trying to figure out what happened revolving around this suspicious death, and there's just so many things that I really love about this book. And I think this book is really interesting because you get to learn a lot about scythes and why they came into existence and what their rules are and how you become one. You get to learn so much about this world and their history in this book. And the fact that it takes place in the way future is also just very fascinating. But then in Thunderhead, we really get to dive into the moral ethics of things, and I just feel like this book dives even more into not only scythes, but this entire world. I feel like the book Scythe is a lot more dedicated to just specifically the scythes and their moral ethic code and things, but then Thunderhead is more about the world that they live in too. Thunderhead is basically the cloud that we have now, kind of. It's the information, all the information in the world the Thunderhead knows. The Thunderhead is this powerful AI being that knows everything. And so this book is interesting because the Thunderhead is pretty much the main character, and we get a point of view from the Thunderhead, which I think is very fascinating. Yeah, that's all I can really say about either of these books without jumping into some spoilers, because I just really want to talk about the spoilers of this universe. I just really want to get into it, so I'm just gonna get into it now. If this sounds at all interesting to you, then I definitely recommend picking it up, because these aren't just young adult dystopian books to me. They're very thought-provoking, and the moral dilemmas are just very interesting. It's just so interesting, and these books have totally different vibes in my opinion. This book definitely felt very Blade Runner vibes to me, and it also reminded me a lot of the movie The Dark Knight, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. I don't know, it's just so interesting. So I definitely recommend checking out this series. And yeah, now I'm gonna be jumping into some spoilery sections, so you've been warned, spoilers are ahead. So I guess the first thing that I could talk to you about is some spoilers from Scythe, because it's been a couple of weeks since I've read Scythe, but I remember being very shocked by some of the things that happened in this book. One of the things I loved finding out about this book was that Scythe Faraday had faked his own death to save Citra and Rowan, because you find out later in this book that Citra and Rowan can't both become scythes, and they're gonna have to be forced to kill each other in order to become the next scythe. And so to prevent them from doing that, Scythe Faraday kills himself So then they would be released from the obligation of having to kill one another, but then that's not what ends up happening. I also found it very interesting and so cute that Scythe Faraday was in a romantic relationship with Scythe Marie Curie. And that was so cute, and it's so sad that like when they got found out, they had dated for like 7 years, so they made them suffer 7 deaths because they just wanted to punish them, and like, oh, it's so sad. The freaking ending of this book was crazy when Citra was forced to like kill her own brother for the final like thing to become a scythe. Like, they go through all these different tests, and like the final test, she has to kill her own brother. Like, you have to kill someone you love in order to become a scythe. And of course her brother was gonna be revived, but it's still like he's always gonna have that memory of his sister killing him, and like, oh my god, it's just so sad, and like that's so crazy. Like, I can't even imagine doing that. And I love how at the very end she goes to like punch Rowan in the face, and she like hits him with her like immunity ring and gives him immunity for a year. Like, how casual. I just think that's so cool that scythes even have the ability to like be able to give people immunity for a year when you like kiss their ring. Like, that is so cool that they have the ability to like give people safety, but also they have the power to kill people. Like, it's just interesting. Like, they have so much power. So that's pretty much all I have to say about Scythe. But Thunderhead was like such a different experience than Scythe. Like, I feel like this book was so different because we get the point of view of the Thunderhead, which made this book feel so much more thought-provoking to me. Like, I feel like this one went even deeper into the world. I wrote an entire 3 pages worth of notes on Thunderhead because I just had so many thoughts about it, and I didn't want to forget anything that happened because, like, since I'm not a big series reader, I know the 3rd book of this series doesn't come out until November, so I didn't want to forget anything that happened. I love how in the beginning of this book, Rowan has become Scythe Lucifer, and he's taken it upon himself to kind of sniff out the scythes that are evil and that are doing wrong and that aren't really abiding to the rules of being a scythe, and then he's going out and killing them. I just find this so fascinating. Like, he's basically like Batman. Now Citra is going by Scythe Anastasia, and she is doing her own method of gleaning, and I really like the way that she does it because she gives her victims a month's notice that they're going to be gleaned, and so she's like, you have a month to get your life in order and tell everyone you love like your goodbyes and everything, and then within 1 month like she's going to come back and glean them. And I really like her choice to do that because it just feels so much more like human to give them a warning that they're gonna die. And I think it's so funny how the other scythes react so badly to this, and they're like, it's immoral, it's inhumane to know that your days are numbered is a cruelty. And it's like, it's so funny because then they talk about how in the mortal age things existed like cancer and like all these things where you knew that your days were numbered. It's so funny to me that that thought for them is like they can't possibly imagine that. And I would actually think like if I were to get gleaned, like I would definitely want a month's notice so that you can like do all the things that you wanted to do right before you die. And it's like, it's so ironic to me because it's like saying like to know that your days are numbered is a cruelty, but it's like that's literally the life that we live in this mortal age, you know? Like in our time, like we know that our days are numbered, like none of us are immortal. And I mean, I guess that is cruel, but like we don't know any other way. So I just thought that whole section was so funny. That was so sad when we found out that Rowan's dad was gleaned and that they basically just did that to like get back at him and try to make him like stop his ways as like Scythe Lucifer. God, I knew there was something shady about them training Tiger, which was Rowan's friend, to be a scythe. I was like, there's no way that they're gonna let him be a scythe. Like, this is so shady, like something else is going on. And then of course, we find out that Scythe Rand survived the fire, like at the end of Scythe, which is something I forgot to mention, but like, oh my god, at the end of Scythe when he killed Goddard, like, holy crap, that was crazy. But of course, we find out in this book that they were training Tiger so that they could use his body, and Goddard's head was like saved from the fire. So then they freaking take his friend Tiger and they like take off his head and put Goddard's head onto Tiger's body, and like now Goddard can live and he's alive. Oh my god, I couldn't believe that. Like, I was so like, it's so frustrating because Goddard is honestly like so annoying. He's basically a glorified serial killer. and so seeing him be able to come back so easily was very annoying. But yeah, so some of these passages from the Thunderhead I think were very interesting. Like when it's talking about the basic income guaranteed, he's like, it's the concept of welfare and social security, but it was reinvented as the big. All citizens had a right to a small piece of the pie regardless of their ability or desire to contribute. It's so interesting because then in this world, like, these people get a piece of money from this basic income guarantee every month. They don't really have a reason to have a job, right? Like, they get this income every month from this, so like there's no real need for them to have a job. But then I love how it says humans, however, have a basic need beyond just that income. They need to feel useful, productive, or at least busy, even if that busy work provides nothing to society. And it's saying like the illusion of purpose is critical to a well-adjusted population. I think it's so fascinating in this book that the Thunderhead is basically a god because it's constantly observing them. It's always like a voice that they can rely on to protect them. It's constantly in communication with them. The way that the Thunderhead describes it can kind of like control the weather partially too. Like, it's so fascinating. And it's crazy too that in this world there's no more religion really, because the Thunderhead is their god. I was wondering in the beginning of this book what Grayson's point in this story was going to be, and then once the ending of the book happened, I was like, oh my god. The ending of this book was so crazy, and I feel like so many things happened right at the end there, and it was just like totally bonkers. So Anastasia basically takes Goddard to court because they are trying to nominate a new High Blade because Exonocrates, or whatever his name is stepping down. And so they nominated Marie Curie. Then Seth Goddard was like, I am nominated too to be part of High Blade. And then everybody was like, holy shit, he's still alive. So now Anastasia's taking him to court because she's saying that he can't be considered for the High Blade because he's only 7% of Goddard, because his body is Tiger's body and only his head is Goddard's body. So then we find out that the court decides like that she's right, and they're like, yeah, you have to start training as an apprentice again to become a scythe because you're not a scythe. And Goddard gets like ridiculously mad, and of course he can't let them just have their way and just go about their life, but he just has to decide to destroy the entire island. Earlier in the book it had mentioned that he hired all these like hacker people and whatever, and I totally forgot about it. But then of course the island starts sinking and he has control over the whole thing. Like, he's hacked everything in the island so that the island itself is beginning to sink, and literally all the high powerful people that are scythes are on this island. And it's crazy because he's just trying to destroy the evidence that he got disqualified from the High Blade, basically. So like everyone that knows about it is gonna die on this island, and he's just gonna like take over the world. It was so sad to see all of the Grand Slayers basically get eaten by sharks, and Exonocrates was like, I'm not gonna go that way, like I'm gonna drown and self-glean myself because I'm not gonna let him like have that power over me. And there's that scene when he just like drowned himself as opposed to getting eaten by the sharks. And then it was so sad because Marie Curie wanted to like save them, and so she basically like sacrificed herself. Like, she locked Rowan and Citra in the vault together and then like left, and she knew that their bodies would be preserved if it was in that, even if they went underwater. Like, their bodies are going to be preserved, but like who knows how long they're going to be underwater. And like that makes me think in the next book there's going to be like a time jump potentially of like however long it took for them to find their bodies, which could be like a year, it could be 100 years. I mean, like Rowan was saying, like they don't know how long they're going to be in there, and like that's crazy. It was so sad to see Marie Curie, like she went up to all the people on the island and just started gleaning them, because like they would rather die by getting gleaned by a scythe as opposed to like getting eaten by sharks or drowning or whatever. So she was gleaning all these people, and then when it was only the scythes left, she was like, finish it or whatever, and they all like self-gleaned themselves. And it was so sad because like she had just been through so much, and it was like she had finally gotten the High Blade power, and now like her only option was to self-glean, and like it was just so sad. Because I really liked her character, and she was like a mother figure to Citra, basically. That was such a crazy powerful scene though, when like the island was actually sinking and then the Thunderhead just like screamed, and like the Thunderhead just used like all the technology in the world to just like let out this like wail, and it lasted for like 10 minutes, and it was just like this like high-pitched scream across like the whole world, and like that was just so powerful to me because like that's when it finally like reached its breaking point. Like it's done with humanity and it thinks all of us deserve to suffer now. And then it shows the Tonus where Grayson is at, and they're all like freaking out because they've all been marked as unsavory. Grayson doesn't know what to do because like literally everyone in the whole world is marked as unsavory now, and unsavory means that they can't communicate with the Thunderhead, and so like they don't even know what to do with themselves. It's just so sad because like the Thunderhead is so powerful and it knows like humanity is fucked up and like we can't even take care of ourselves, so it feels the need to like step in, but now we are cut off of communication with it. Then it's so crazy because at the very end Grayson goes up to the computer and it IDs him as Grayson as opposed to Slade, which is like the name he was going by for like the whole book. And then the Thunderhead talks to him and it's like, we need to talk. Like that means that Grayson is the only one that's not marked as unsavory in like the whole world. And I saw a lot of people like drawing like religious parallels from this book to like religion in our world, and the parallels are just so obvious to me. Like, oh my gosh, like the Thunderhead, that is this god, it's basically like these characters were living in this perfect heaven-like place where death would never happen and we were all like living happily ever after. And now Grayson is going to be seen as this Jesus figure because he basically said he was raised by the Thunderhead, like the Thunderhead feels like a father figure to him, and now he is the only one in communication with the Thunderhead, which makes him like this Jesus figure. Yeah, sorry, my thoughts are just so like all over the place right now and I can't even freaking coherently speak about this book, but it was just so good and it was so crazy. I think I liked both of these books equally, even though they were completely different. I feel like they just had such different vibes, which is great, and I just can't wait for the third book, and I'm so curious to see where it goes because Goddard is basically gonna take over the world now, right? Because like there's nobody alive to remember what happened. I can imagine that the next book is gonna start when Rowan and Citra wake up, right? Or like get rescued from the vault, and who knows how many years that's gonna be, and like what kind of world are they gonna be waking up in? Like, is it gonna be a world where Goddard is like ruling everything? Goddard's character honestly just reminds me so much of Thanos from the Avengers. Like he's basically Thanos because he's like, we need to just kill everyone. Yeah, I think that's part of the reason too why I love these books so much, is because especially the second one to me, like it really started to feel like a superhero story. Like Anastasia is like a freaking superhero. And I mean like the good scythes are definitely very heroic to me. Like they seem like very heroic. And then the bad scythes that have like lost their way, like Goddard, feel very like villainous. So it definitely feels like a superhero story in a way as well, which is probably why I like it so much. I really enjoyed these books. I don't really know like what else to say. Like this book just like shook me to my core, and I cannot wait to read the third book. So if you've read them, let me know what your thoughts are. And I'm sorry this video is such a mess, oh my god. But thank you so much for watching as always, and I will see you guys soon with a new video.